All right, welcome back to another episode. I am super excited today because we have an amazing guest. We are diving into the platform that so many of your ideal clients are quietly hanging out on, and that is LinkedIn. If you're a business owner who is short on time, but you're crystal clear that your clients are not scrolling around on Instagram or Facebook, this is for you. You're going to learn how to realistically get started generating leads and clients on LinkedIn without wasting hours or feeling like you need to become a full time content creator. My guest today is Brooke Miles. She is here to give us the blueprint from setting up your profile so that it can attract the right people to creating engagement that actually sparks conversation to turning those connections into sales. So think of this as your mini masterclass on using LinkedIn the smart way. So grab your notebook because we are about to break it all down. First, I want to introduce Brooke. Brooke Miles founded Delaware Shoutout, a LinkedIn strategy and training firm to help businesses pack more punch into their into their LinkedIn presence without breaking a sweat. In 10 plus years of business, Brooke and her team have worked directly with hundreds of clients from solopreneurs to state run organizations and multinational corporations who have reported significant gains in followers, engagement, and traffic to their website. Her company is a two-time winner of the Delaware Small Business Chamber's Best Marketing Award and a two-time winner of the Best Women-Owned Business Award. So awesome. Congratulations on
Thank
that.
you.
She has also been a top 3 finalist for Social Media Professional of the Year Award by the Philadelphia Business Journal. Brooke is also a TEDx speaker and has won multiple awards from Toastmasters International. Finally, Brooke is also known for her YouTube channel called Delaware Shoutout, which has 25,000 subscribers and teaches entrepreneurs how to build a LinkedIn presence that they can be proud of. So definitely make sure you head on over to Delaware Shoutout and check out the really practical, informative, and actionable videos that Brooke has available there. Welcome to the show, Brooke.
Oh, thank you so much. That is such an amazing introduction you gave me. I'm
Oh, it's
feeling really
my
good about myself
pleasure.
right now. So thank you. I needed that little pick me up.
Right,
That's awesome.
exactly.
Thank you.
Oh, okay, so let's get right into it.
Yeah.
I want to start off by asking you about your uh the way that you position LinkedIn, right? I've heard you say that
Mm,
you describe LinkedIn as a networking event. So tell
yes.
us what you mean by that and how can we start to adopt that philosophy of LinkedIn being a networking event?
Awesome. Well, a lot of times when people are thinking of social media, they're like, okay, what should I post? What should I post? It's like, what messages can I just put out there as a one-way conversation? And then people will see whatever I put out there and then go ahead and just be amazed by me and buy from me. And LinkedIn is a bit different. Now, obviously, we're going to get to posting, okay? But LinkedIn it's basically where business professionals meet each other, just like at in-person networking events. The only difference is that it's 20, well, two differences. It's 24/7 and it's completely digital. Two main reasons why people would be on LinkedIn. One of them is because they're looking for a job, but the other reason, and this is where I focus on, is because you know your clients are on LinkedIn and you need a way to find them and start conversations with them. So what I like to do when I'm thinking of LinkedIn is there are three different areas of success, and you already touched on those in the amazing introduction you gave. The first one is basically your profile. And think of your profile when you're walking into a networking event is how are you dressed? Are you dressed to the nines? Are you in a dirty t-shirt and ripped jeans? Okay. Is it think of, it's all your profile is also your business card. Your profile, I would also argue, is your 30-second or 60-second elevator pitch. Okay. It's how you present yourself. the next thing, which we'll be talking about, is engagement. And engagement is all those conversations you have in in a networking situation. For example, and we'll go into details soon, but for example, let's say you see a post and you want to comment on it. That's a conversation. Maybe you see someone else's comment and you want to comment on someone else's comment. Now you're entering into other conversations, and then you can start connecting with them and direct messaging them. So that's the engagement. And then finally, the posting. When you post, think of that as going to a networking event where there's also a speaker. Okay. And that speaker, yes, obviously they have a lot of credit. People will assume a lot of credibility because they're speaking. Let's hope so. But there isn't as much one-way conversation. So there are benefits definitely to posting. But really the magic happens in those meeting talk, or being willing to approach people and talk with them. And I will tell you, when the pandemic hit in 2020, it became even more important. And some of us, and I will tell you, I'm a little bit of an introvert, believe it or not. You'd never know it from my YouTube channel or like working with me, but I'm a bit of an introvert and I love being behind the screen. And LinkedIn is a great way to just meet people when you don't feel up for
Yeah.
going to that in-person thing, or maybe all of your dressed to the nines outfits are at the dry cleaners or something.
I love that. I'm a bit of an introvert too, so I get it. Although I feel like maybe I should start calling myself an ambivert because I've been able
Hmm.
to uh motivate myself to be outward when I
Mhm.
need to be, right? But I definitely recharge inward, so I totally get it.
Yeah.
So I love what you said. I want to think about where are our business owners going wrong on LinkedIn that really keeps them invisible to potential clients? Like what's the common thing, and maybe even a pet peeve for you, right? That you
Oh
see, like,
no.
oh, if they only knew, right? Like, where are business owners kind of going wrong on LinkedIn right now? Because I want to start out so that we're just not doing those things, right? And then from here, we're going to jump into, what we really should be doing.
Awesome. Okay. So I do believe that everyone is well intentioned when they go on there. So I hate to say, here's what bothers me, because honestly, if you had 3 hours, I would, because none of us are born knowing what to do with LinkedIn. Okay, so in all fairness, all these mistakes come from just you're focused on your craft, you're focused on your industry, and you haven't had the opportunity. So I do want to kind of keep that in mind. Um, let's see. So on a broad brush level, in your profile, it could be, for example, not having it completely filled out or not making it clear why someone, this is actually a big one, why someone should read your profile. Because, for example, my title is president and my company's Delaware Shout Out. If my headline at the very top of my profile, which are the big words, by the way, that appear underneath your profile picture, just for those who don't know what the headline is. If my headline just said President of Delaware Shout Out, there's no one, I assure you, who's like, you know what? I woke up this morning thinking I need to meet a President of Delaware Shout Out. And what do you know? I met her and now my dreams have come true. No. So you have to have your headline actually say, here's how I help you do this. Okay. So, and that can apply to so much of your profile. Like you have to give people reasons for basically what's in it for them that they should continue getting to know you. On the engagement side, usually the biggest issue is people don't engage and don't understand that this is where you talk with people. And there are some other questions I have, like, what should I say in a conversation? And we'll get to that. With posting, it's either, I think it's only something, I always hear different statistics on this, but it's somewhere between only like 1% and 3% of LinkedIn users actually post on a regular basis. So the great majority of people are not posting, but when they post, it's either a lot of it is they're using AI, which I totally understand, and it's totally fine to use AI to kind of get the general sense of what you want to say if you don't feel comfortable writing, if you're scared of writing. What a godsend AI can be to help start that. But in the end, you have to own the post and you have to say, you know what? I wouldn't actually say that.
Yeah.
So you still have to own it, you still have to edit it. And I think that's where a lot of people are going wrong among other things, but that is a big thing that I've been seeing, especially the last couple years.
Okay. Okay. So let's get into let's go deeper
Yeah.
into the profile optimization strategy. So
Mhm.
you brought up headline. Give us some tips, Brooke. Like what would be an example of a good headline? I love what you said in terms of it really should speak to how I help people versus just what I do, my title, right? So
Yes.
what would be an example of like a good headline, or do you have any like headline formulas that you tend to use?
Yes. So I always go back and forth on formulas, but the one I do like is, let me backtrack for a second. You've heard of like using storytelling techniques in pretty much everything,
Yes.
right? You can put a mini story, a mini story in your headline. Think of a story as going from point A to point B, okay? With point A being like, bleh, and point B being yay, for lack of a better term, because we're recording this at 3 o'clock in the afternoon on a Monday, and I've lost my words. Um, so, but the key is it goes from, negative to positive. So if you could say, I help people go from this to that, that can be really, really helpful. It's also helpful in your headline to say who that person is. And finally, if you can have some type of call to action, for example, direct message me for more details or DM me or anything like that. I've gone, I had that call to action for the longest time in my headline, and numerous people were saying, I heard you're a TEDx speaker. Why is that on your headline? So I've decided I ran out of characters. So I got rid of the call to action and put the TEDx speaker in there. But I'll just gonna read off my headline just to give
Okay.
you an idea. And mine, how do I put it? It hints at the negativity that we're trying to get away from without flat out saying it. So mine says practical LinkedIn strategies for busy owners and marketers. Okay, so we already know who it's for, who put people before the algorithm because people buy from you.
Mm,
So what I'm doing is I'm hinting at the fact that, you know what, you're probably hearing all these things. You should do this and you should comment 30 times a day. And an hour after you post, you should do blah, 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 and engagement pods and all these hacks. And it's like, no, you're talking to people. So
right.
I'm giving all this commentary, and anyone listening is not going to be able to see what this is about. And I am sorry if you hear a train in the background. I live right by a train. So,
No, I don't.
okay,
It's
great.
fine.
Okay. So, okay, I'm going to read this again. Okay, so practical LinkedIn strategies for busy owners and marketers who put people before the algorithm because people buy from you. Attract new clients through truth and kindness. Group and one-on-one coaching, TEDx speaker. So you'll see, and that you have a maximum of 220 characters, including spaces. And I'm usually with myself, and then also and I'm changing my headline all the time. And with my clients, we usually go right up to the 220 mark. Usually I'm all about less is more, but I will say for the headline, because that headline follows you in numerous places on LinkedIn when you're posting, when you're commenting. This is prime advertising space. And the first 50 characters are what are sure not to get cut off if your headline is being shown at different areas. So the first 50 characters are especially important. But you'll see that I also said, what I do, for whom, what I don't stand for, and what I do stand for, and the TEDx speaker piece of it.
Got it.
So,
Yeah,
yeah.
I even felt like it was more lean towards who you're trying to attract, right?
Yes, I am.
Yeah,
Yep.
that was like really like the meat of it. And then you mentioned how you could help one on one and group. And you mentioned the result that you help
Yeah.
them to achieve, right? Which is focused on LinkedIn. So I like that. It was kind of like a little salad of, you know, this ingredient, that ingredient, which really helps. And I think for me, what does stand out is you're saying who you're trying to reach, solopreneurs and marketers.
Hmm.
So if people are wondering, from your profile, like, is this for me? I mean, it blatantly says it right there.
Yep.
That's exactly who you can help. Okay, so that was gold. So thank you so much for that. Now, if we think about the rest of our profile, I
Mhm.
almost like to think of our LinkedIn page is like a mini sales page, right?
Yes.
For either our personal brand or our business. And if that's the case, what are the most important sections to nail and why?
You just asked exactly what I wanted to talk about. So because there's so many sections to the LinkedIn profile that you could get really lost and okay, what do I do? So I would say the five that you should concentrate on. Okay.
Okay.
The first one is the banner image at the top. Okay. So because that's people are probably going to look at that first before they even read your headline or anything like that. And we're visual creatures by nature. So working on the banner, and I do recommend an image that reflects your industry. That would be helpful. If you're going to have words, don't make it too many. Keep in mind that most people look at LinkedIn on their phones, so you have to make everything mobile friendly. The second one is your profile picture. And I will tell you, for me, I held on to my one profile picture that I had for like 13 years, longer than I should have, because I'm like, I want to look this way again. But eventually you have to update
Coming
it.
back.
I know. But you know what? I didn't want, but I realized too, it's like, you know what? I don't want to have a picture that doesn't reflect me. And then someone meets me on Zoom. Like I do most of my work on Zoom with clients who are, all around the nation and technically all around the world. I do sometimes get an international client and I don't want them to like look at me and Zoom like, whoa, what happened here?
Right.
Clearly 50 years have passed since that picture was taken. So make sure that it's up to date. Make sure you're smiling. Make sure you're looking at the camera because I know it looks all cool to look to the side like you're like deep in thought. I get it, okay? But it doesn't build trust.
Hmm.
It doesn't. And also just make sure that it's closer up, like basically from the shoulders up. The third section would be the headline. We already talked about that. The fourth section is the about section. It's sometimes called the summary, but imagine the about section is like the headline, but on steroids. So you're building out that story more. Okay, what is your pain point? Okay, you're dealing with this. I get it. Let me help you. Let me help you out of it. Here's my credibility statement and have a call to action with your contact information. Because even though your contact information does appear in the contact section, unless someone is directly connected with you, they're not going to see your contact info. And they may not be
Oh,
able to direct message you.
yeah, that's a good
Yeah.
tip.
I
Hot take.
also, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt there.
No, I'm
Um,
saying that's a hot take. Yeah, that's
yeah, it
great.
is. It is. Also, make sure you inject a bunch of keywords in there. I had to make it sound like you, okay? Like like the websites from like the late 1990s. It's like, would you like to hire a plumber from Wilmington, Delaware? Because in Delaware we have plumbers. It's like don't write it like that. Write it like but make sure you put some keywords in there. The last thing, and not too many people do this, but I tell you, it's been a huge conversation starter for me. It's been amazing. At the very end of my about section, and most of my clients love doing this. I have something that says icebreakers you can talk with me about. And it lists three things that are about me that have nothing to do with LinkedIn. One of them is vegan cooking. It says I eat more than twigs and berries. You can talk with me about homeschooling and then also learning foreign languages for fun because that's my big hobby. And because I have people seen that. And then when they direct message me, they're like, oh, I see blah, blah, blah. And, my boyfriend's vegan and I'm trying to cook for them. And guess what? Now we're having a human conversation by direct message.
Yes.
It takes away all the awkwardness,
I
all of
love
it.
that.
And if sometime down the road you want to have a sales conversation, you can. So I would say of all the sections, oh, I'm sorry. Fifth section is the featured section. If you go to my profile, and I know there's going to be a link to this podcast, you can see it, but use that as a sales tool. You can basically create an image that sells a particular, like choose your one or two top services that you offer and have a thumbnail image for each one. And when people click on it, they'll go to that page of your website you want them to go to. It's fairly straightforward for setting up, but it is completely an underutilized area. Sometimes people use the featured section for promoting their most popular post, but unless that sells your service, you have plenty of opportunities to post every day if you
Right.
want. I would use it for that. I would use it for
Okay.
that. So anyway, that hopefully gives you a really good starting point
Yeah, this
for
is great.
yes.
One follow up here about the banner.
Mhm.
I see that people are often torn between whether or not they should have a banner image that like directly promotes their company, right? Where their company logo is on
Mhm.
there or the name of their business, website address, that sort of thing, or more of a lifestyle image. Do you feel like it matters or how should we be thinking about what we're choosing as the image for this banner as business
Mm.
owners?
And when you're saying a lifestyle image, you're talking about, for example, let's say they're an accountant or they have an accounting firm, but they love hiking and they have a hiking image. Is that what you mean by like about mountains? Is that what you mean by lifestyle image, or what do you mean?
Yeah, whether it's oh, that's a perfect question. So let me maybe rephrase. Just it could be an image of them working
Mhm.
or an image of them hiking. So I guess if it's hiking, it definitely would be more lifestyle. But what I guess I'm saying is anything outside of a company
Mm.
banner.
Yeah.
Should you go straight for the company banner, or should you do something like you have in your about section, something a little bit more personal to be able to connect, or showing you in the process of doing your work. I mean, for us service providers, sometimes that can feel a little bit more challenging, right? Because
Mhm.
you're maybe just showing an image of yourself at your desk or in front of the computer or, doing something like
Yeah.
that. So, how do we make a decision about where to go in terms of this banner image?
I Most of the time I advise my clients to go more the just show something in your industry route or something that because and rather than you at a desk or you doing something, because in that profile, remember in that whole section, your headshot is on the left side. And in a mobile situation, your headshot takes up a huge part of the banner. And so if you have like Brooke and Brooke like right next to each other, it's like it's just too much Brooke. So even my husband doesn't want me to have a twin, so and he loves me. So, it's just too much. The only time I do recommend having a picture of you is a lot of times I work with clients who want to get more speaking gigs. So, it's very helpful to have a picture of them where they're already speaking in front of an audience, so that way their target audience can already picture them doing that, and then they're more likely to get hired for more gigs. But beyond that, I would suggest not going that route.
Okay. Okay, that's super helpful. Um, what's a quick win if I'm thinking about my profile?
Mhm.
What is the like most important quick win that someone could do today that would immediately increase their profile views?
Gotcha. I do want to interject one thing because I know there's going to be one question that about half of everyone listening is going to have, and that is, why are we talking about the profile and not the company page? Okay.
Okay, that's a good
Because I just
yeah,
want to set this now because otherwise people are like, I keep on hearing about the profile, but why am I hearing
right,
about this? Okay.
right.
And then I promise you I'll answer your question.
No, this is perfect.
Um,
I'm so glad you put that up.
That's okay. So, because LinkedIn is a networking venue, and this isn't just in my head, this is just what it is. Okay. When you go to a networking event, you go as yourself with your own face, your own body. You talk to people, human to human. You don't go with a paper bag over your head with your company logo on it. You just don't. People want to talk with people. So, go ahead and have a company page. I will tell you if you did, well, okay, you at least want to have one so that way the logo from the company page shows up on your profile in the experience section. But except for that little tiny thing, you don't it's going to really not do you much good. Okay. So just don't worry about it. And if you don't believe me, I just go ahead and Google it. And then you'd be like, okay, Brooke was not making this up. Okay. So now in terms of, what can you do to get more views on your profile? I would say the more it depends on what you're trying to do. For example, if you want to show up in more searches, as an example, then completely filling out your profile as much as you can and making sure all those keywords are in there is going to make the hugest difference. But I will say that most people I am running into are finding my profile either through my posts or in commenting. In other words, I comment, they're like, okay, who's this chick? And then they click
Right.
on it. So I'm sure that's not what they were thinking. I'm just trying to be colorful. So it's through the conversations because you could be at a networking event and be dressed to the nines and you have your elevator pitch and you have your business card, but if you're standing in the corner, no one's going to find you. You have to walk into conversations.
Yeah. Okay, I hear you on this, Brooke, but I know right now someone's listening is like, what? I have to talk to
Talk to
people?
people. Yup.
Right. So how do you step into that? And where should they begin in terms of, is it just engaging on other people's posts that they should really start doing? Like, how do they kind of get over the fear and really get started? And where should they get started with the talking to people, or,
Yeah.
otherwise known as engagement?
Yes, 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 yes. Okay. And with engagement, I do want to also make sure we touch on how to connect with people too, because let's say someone listening just has 50 connections. Okay. They're not going to have, they're of those 50 connections, maybe one person they know is actually posting, and they're just going to have conversations with that one post kind of thing. So there's so many different ways to do this. And I know when I work with clients, it all depends on their personality. So let's say you're already connected with a bunch of people in your target audience, okay? And there are enough, and as a result, there are enough posts in your news feed that you can speak to as someone from that industry, or you can interject kind of thing. If you see a post that sounds interesting, just I don't know how to put it, just like comment on it. It's a good rule of thumb, and that is if let's say you and I were talking we were in person, okay, and I happen to have a post, but I have it printed out, and I'm like, hey, check this out, and it's a paragraph, you read it really quickly, and you're like, oh, and you know what, and then you say something, you say whatever's in your heart, you just whatever you would say in a normal in-person situation, that's what you say on LinkedIn. I know, and I've seen this, where you can have comment generators where people just feed stuff in and they click a button and the comment goes in. You know what? People can tell. They really can. So it's better just to read it and whatever comes to mind. What I sometimes like to do is, let's say it's a post that is 4 paragraphs long and there's this one sentence that I see in the third paragraph and it really catches my eye. I might just make a comment on that one. It's like, I really liked what you said about blah blah blah, and here's why. In general, try to add value. In other words, don't just say, that's great, I totally agree. I mean, it's once in a while, you have a long day. It's long, and sometimes, or I just don't get enough sleep. I'm like, that's a great post.
Right.
But normally, you're going to be able to add to the conversation just like you do in person. Someone says something interesting, you add extra to it. You're like, you know what? That is so true. And guess what? I also think this, or
Yeah.
that's really interesting, but I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Okay? Just say something interesting or ask a question. So always ask yourself, what would you say in person? Um, Now, let's say you don't have a lot of connections. I do recommend connect with people, first of all, you already know. Okay. It just, and we can, there's a whole thing about that. But you can also, I also like to search on LinkedIn for people posting about particular topics because they are more likely to be in that. And this is actually more something I would offer to a client who is looking for specific niches where I'm pretty much niche agnostic. But if they're looking for specific niche, okay, let's look for people who are posting about blah 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 blah. Like one of my clients she does financial analyses for divorce attorneys who are trying to manage their client settlements. Okay, so she's always looking for posts from divorce attorneys or from family law attorneys. It usually says family law attorney, not divorce attorney. So it's a little bit of a sad example, but that is a good one where new family law attorney, she can find new family law attorneys all the time and then comment on this post. And if they respond back or they like it, maybe try to connect. Or maybe comment or more of the post, and maybe follow them so that all of their posts show up in their feed, so you can start, have more of a conversation and eventually get to the point where you can connect in direct message. Just like in an in-person situation where, let's say you meet someone for the first time and you're having some back and forth, and that's fine. You wouldn't just automatically say, great, well, tell you what, how about if you come to my office next Wednesday and let's figure out how we're going to have this whole new partnership. No, you wait to see them at the next event and the next event, or maybe you follow up with an email. You just treat it like, you just realize that that person on the other side, they may look two-dimensional to you, but that's a living, breathing, three-dimensional human being, and just treat it like that. And some people you can get really far really quickly. And I've met people like that. Like literally the day we meet, we're setting up a Zoom call. We're in love with each other, okay? And
Right.
there are other people where it's like it's really lukewarm, and you can sense it. You can. So just use that same common sense.
Okay, love that. So just be natural, be practical,
Yeah.
kind of speak. I was even saying to a client the other day, like she was drafting an email response to someone. I said, just speak from the heart, like, and not
Yeah.
in a mushy woo kind of way, but more in a natural, this is how I would talk to someone that I know very well, just really saying the point that you're trying to get across without, sugarcoating it or anything else. And
Mhm.
I also love what you said. It made me think about add value. We've all been in those meetings where people are like, "Oh, and let me piggyback off of that." It's like,
Yeah.
don't piggyback. Just add I mean, you can, right? There's nothing wrong with like adding to the conversation.
Yeah.
Don't regurgitate what somebody else said, but kind of add your perspective, I think is really important.
Exactly.
I want to ask you another engagement question, but before we go there, I want to go back to something you said about keywords. Are there, of the 5 sections that you gave us, are there certain sections of LinkedIn that are searchable or where we need to be really rich in our SEO? I'm guessing the about section is one of those, but how can the keywords on our profile, assist in getting found, and where should we be putting them? Anywhere else besides about?
About the experience section. In other words, your current job experience is the company you own, as an example. So
Mhm.
you can certainly put stuff there. If it makes sense if it makes sense to have a couple keywords in your headline at the top of your profile, do it. But again, you're promoting yourself to humans, not robots. So you just have to have that fine balance there of being searchable but not heartless at the
Okay.
same time. So, because in the end, you really need a lot of heart to just put yourself, just like in that email response you're talking about, just put yourself out there with a lot of heart. So yes, I would recommend doing about section, experience section, and if you can, the headline.
Okay. Okay, got it. And then one other question I wanted to go back to, which was around the findability. So when you're posting on LinkedIn,
Mhm.
is it only the people that are in relationship with you, basically like followers or connections, that can see your posts, or can people that are not actively connected with you, uh like, do they also get your posts, or is it only your connections?
That's a super interesting question. So there are different levels to this. So for example, anyone who visits your profile can see your activity section, and there they'll see, and it could be anyone can see your posts. They can even see your comments. They can see your reactions to things. Another reason to also comment and not just say "Great post, Bob," or
Mhm.
so they can see everything. In terms of when you put a post out there and what appears and who receives it in their news feeds, what LinkedIn does, and I have to tell you, it always changes. So today, on the day that we are
Right, right,
recording
right. Yeah.
this,
Right. Here's
okay,
what's
but just
happening.
keep in
Yeah.
mind, it always changes. LinkedIn prioritizes connections, and then I would say secondarily, but very close, followers. of your post. So those people are way more likely to see your post first, but they don't send it to everyone. But LinkedIn doesn't send your post to everyone. It sends it to a small subsection of your connections and followers, and it prioritizes your connections and followers who have already shown interest in the thing you talk about, either because they've engaged with previous posts of yours or other posts from other LinkedIn creators, that type of thing. Because LinkedIn's trying to keep people on LinkedIn. So it's trying to stuff people's news feeds with the things that each person they believe wants to see. All right. So it'll send your post to a small subsection. And if it turns out that it does well, it'll send it to more and more and more and more. One thing that LinkedIn has, but it's always just a small percentage of your connections or of your network in general that will even see any of your posts. It is possible for certainly for someone outside of your network to see one of your posts. It could either be suggested by LinkedIn. For example, if there's a post that's doing really well, they're like, look, I know that, you're not connected to that person, but you really should be seeing this post because it's doing well and it's in your industry and you've responded to stuff like this. But what more often happens is that if someone comments on your post, there is a chance that that comment will show up in the comment, and thus your post is also will show up in the some news feeds of the people who follow the commenter. Does that
Okay.
make does that
Yeah.
make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Also some people can repost your post as well, but reposts don't seem to go very far right now on LinkedIn, which is really sad because I consider a repost the ultimate compliment of a post. Like you like a post so much that you want as much of
Yeah.
your network to see it, but really comments seem to be more where you're likely to have a post go out to others. I know that I can think of two clients in particular that I met because two different people in my first degree network commented on something I said, and the clients end up being in the second degree network. In other words, second degree being you're not directly connected to the person, but you both are connected to a mutual connection.
Right.
Okay, so first connection is when you're immediately connected. Second is when you're one away from
One
that.
person removed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. That's super helpful because I was imagining someone's, thinking or wondering, am I gonna reach my clients? I'll even share, transparently for me, it was years ago where someone was saying to me, oh, you should be doing more on LinkedIn, you should be doing more on LinkedIn. And I was a bit hesitant at the time because I felt like most of the people that are following me or that I'm connected to on LinkedIn
Mhm.
are people that are actually in my network. I mean, these are, college friends, high school friends, etc. They're not my ideal clients. So I thought, is it really worth, going in on LinkedIn if the only people that I'm going to be reaching are not my ideal clients?
Yeah. And it just because they're, first of all, you don't know what they're thinking. So especially if it's, let's say it's a past coworker of yours, you don't know where they are in life. And let's say they just started their own business and they're looking, so you don't know. But the thing is, you also don't know every single person that they know. So it's very helpful to be in front of people who could be fantastic referral sources for you, whether not will, whether they're doing it directly and saying, okay, I know someone you need to talk to, or they happen to comment or like on something. And then as a result, your post gets seen by some of their network. It's so I do recommend to clients to, especially if they're shy, they're getting started. Okay, start with the people you know. Okay, but then we're gonna we're gonna be brave, and I understand. I get it. I totally get it. Let's figure out there are different ways we can do this. What are going to be the best ways for you to meet people you don't know? Personally, because I'm an introvert, I like meeting people through comments, and I've met lots of really interesting people through comments. And we have a little commenting conversation. I reach out to connect. They almost always accept it, and then my job from there is like, okay, how can I have a more of a conversation with them at this point? So, but some of my clients are like super brave and like they're just like amazing, and they're like my superheroes, and they're like, no, I'm just going to go on and I'm just going to find these people and I'm going to just, I'm going to reach out and connect with them and see what I'm like, okay, but it works for their personality. So just like with networking, there are different ways. And, when you walk into a networking event, everyone has a different personality, and all personalities have their pros and cons. But just go in as yourself in the way that you want to go in, and it will be okay.
Okay. Okay,
Yeah.
that's super helpful. So let's talk about an engagement routine, right? So you've,
Mm,
kind of hit home for us that like engagement is where it's at. If you really
yeah.
want to start getting results on LinkedIn, engagement is what we need to be doing. What do you recommend in terms of an engagement routine and how we should think about balancing, commenting, posting, DMs, or all the things, right, that
Yeah.
can create engagement? What's a routine that you use or that you have suggested to some of your clients?
Awesome. So my routine is always evolving, and I do use my own routine as a baseline for my clients. And sometimes we're like, no, wait, I could do even more. And sometimes we're like, okay, can we do a little less? But let me tell you what my baseline is. And then, we always customize it. So I make a point to comment at least 3 times every day. And when I say every day, I mean Monday through Friday, because the rest of my time is for, for my family. Okay. But 3 times a day. Now that may not, and one of those times has to be with a stranger. In other words, it's a stranger's post, or it's a stranger commenting on someone else's post that I happen to know, that kind of thing. I force myself to meet one stranger every day. Okay. And so I do that. I will tell you before I get to the rest of my routine here that there is a lot of advice out there. Like I just saw today from someone who's quite popular. They're like, you need to try to comment at least 50 times every day. And I'm like, okay, how are you gonna do it well? I'd rather have three comments where, again, I'm just speaking from the heart. I'm just trying to be as spontaneous as possible, but I still want it to be a little bit well, I still want to add some value. I mean, how much value can you provide doing 50 times a day? So, um, um, when I'm developing strategies with a client, I'm thinking, okay, in addition to being, a successful, entrepreneur, they may be a wife and a mom, and maybe they're helping to take care of their parents, and maybe they have hobbies and passions outside of work. So 3 times a day for me has worked just fine. I'm in business for what, 12, actually 11 years ago, be 12 soon. But, and I wouldn't be in business after this long, just coming, unless there was, unless it didn't work. So 3 times a day is just fine. I promise you. It's just fine. Okay. So that's the big thing. The one thing I added, I'm gonna be doing a YouTube video about this. And that is that when I meet someone, if we're having a good conversation, I will just say, you know what? I network all the time on LinkedIn. If if there's happens to be like a person that I meet that would be good for you to meet, or maybe an opportunity I see that you should know about, I would love to be able to, send those your way. Would you like to do a Zoom one-on-one? And really the point of it is just for me to get to know you better for this purpose. And for a couple of people, just because you can just tell from the profile the way they are. I'm like, I'll just say, by the way, FYI, this is totally not a sales thing. I'm just all about helping people and helping people make connections. And the response rate has been fantastic with that. So if I connect with someone, or I'm having a good commenting conversation with them, like any type of trigger where you're like, let's take the next step, I will do that. And again, for some people, it's like the same day we meet, boom. Zoom call already scheduled. And sometimes it's like, oh, let's just play this out a little bit more. Um, in terms of connecting, I don't have a specific connections goal, but instead I use, if I'm meeting these strangers by commenting, and you could tell there's a little bit of a click going on. When I say click, I mean the CLICK, the good kind of click, not the
Mhm.
exclusivity
Right.
click. Okay, but if we're clicking, then I'll go ahead and reach out to connect. So I do that more when there's a trigger for that. Whereas again, some of my very, very brave clients whom, in my door, will go ahead and just have specific connection goals for each day or each week. So that's how I do it. But the basis you'll see is all through the commenting. It starts from there, and then I figure out, should I be connecting with them? Should I direct message them? What is going to be the next step to help nurture the relationship while understanding that that's a real person on the
Got
other
it.
end.
And are you or have you seen your clients trying to move people kind of off the platform and
Mm-hmm.
into their email list? And, you know, can you give us kind of one or two tips or strategies around that that have been really helpful in a way that you're not, you know, um, this coming off in the wrong way, but how do you kind of move people off of the, because I mean that's what we're there for, right? We want to get the leads, we want to make
Yeah,
the connections and the relationships. So how do we move people from LinkedIn into our email list?
exactly. So one of the ways that I do it, the way I described is one of the ways. Another way that I also teach clients, and again, it totally depends on the client, right? And for example, you could always go the webinar route. And here's an example of this. Let's say you do a post about where you're doing a poll, okay? And you say, what do you think, A, B, or C? And you know that anyone who answers B or C would be a really great client for you. You're the only
Hmm.
one who actually sees who's answering A versus B versus C, and you can follow up with a direct message with a thank you note and say, thank you so much. And by the way, I know you mentioned B as your answer. Just FYI, I'm having a webinar that I'm going to be doing, and I'm going to be going over, the strategies for da 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 da. If you find it helpful, I can send you a link. And then you do the same thing for the people who answered C. So that's another way to do it. Webinars have been a great way to help have conversations with lots of people at one time. So that's another way. I would also say if it's an email list, you could, if you're talking with someone and they mention a pain point, you say, you know what, if you want to get on my email list, and I promise you, I don't sell your, I don't sell your name to anyone, but at all. But every other week or once a week, I actually share tips on blah, 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 blah. If you find that helpful, here's the link. So again, it just kind of depends. It depends where you want people to go. And I think that would be a good thing to identify first. With some of my clients, they never had a webinar. We're actually developing that together. And or maybe they don't have a mechanism for collecting emails, but they are not really a webinar kind of person, but they're more of an email list kind of person. So it also again depends on which way do you want to capture those leads. And for me, I like to, for me, it's a combination of those one-on-one conversations. And then if I can get them to subscribe to my YouTube channel, it's because I offer so many tips. And that has been, for me, that has been a huge, the biggest business development tool I have outside of LinkedIn for people who don't feel they know me well enough. Watch the videos and I'm not telling people who are listening right now to subscribe, but at least watch the videos, and I will, you'll see how that could be another avenue for you as well.
I love that. I love that. I was actually going to be one of my questions. Is it important to use like the longer form
Mhm.
content in conjunction with LinkedIn? Okay, so I know we're headed up on time. So
Mhm.
let me wrap with one of these questions about, we cannot go without talking about video on
Right,
LinkedIn. And
right.
now there's LinkedIn Live. I'm seeing a
Mhm.
lot of people are also taking original video content and uploading it to the platform
Mhm.
itself. Tell us, is one better than the other? Should we be doing both? Like how important is video as a part of the LinkedIn strategy for a business owner?
Yeah, so I know that LinkedIn has been promoting video as well as a lot of other social media platforms have been promoting video like crazy. The one thing I would say is there need to be two things that need to happen in order for you to do video. The first one is that either you're already comfortable on camera or you're willing to get comfortable on camera. Okay. So if that doesn't, if neither of those apply, forget about the next thing, which is you also have the bandwidth for it. Because I will tell you, even my YouTube channel, like it's all recorded on my phone. Okay, my iPhone. Okay, you don't need special equipment, but you still need to get it from your phone to there might be a tiny bit of editing. There are a few extra layers to that, and you want to make sure you have captions because so many people watch social media with the sound off, all that thing. So if you could be comfortable on camera or willing to be, and you have the bandwidth, then go for it. But if you don't, then don't worry about it and just do other types of posts. Seriously. Because I have met some people who have the bandwidth, but are always scared. They just always freak out in front of the camera. And it's like, that's okay. Let's see what types of content where you're going to thrive. Okay. So that's important. Now, in terms of whether to be LinkedIn Live or let's say a regular short form video that's vertical, that type of thing, it actually depends on your goal. LinkedIn Lives, and this same thing can apply to YouTube live streams. A lot of times it's about building community. So you're just trying to have conversations and build those relationships, and you're still providing a lot of information, obviously, but it's more just to kind of nurture the relationships more than anything else. If you're doing shorter form videos, that is very good for, again, quick tips. When I say how-to tutorials, it could be, for example, you know, if you don't know how to create a LinkedIn carousel, here are five quick things you can do, that type of thing. So it's better for that. I also recommend, one question I often get is, well, what should I, let's say I do want to do video, what should I do video on? And what I recommend is, what content do you already have out there that you can just repurpose? Let's say you already have a long form text that you're like, you know what, if I read this out, but into the camera, like naturally, it probably would be about 30 to 45 seconds. So why don't I just do that post that already did well, or I already have a carousel? Let me get. So I recommend repurposing what you already have and putting
Mm.
that into video.
Do you take
If you're going to
your
go ahead and do it.
YouTube videos and put them on LinkedIn?
I do my short form videos. I upload natively onto LinkedIn. My longer form ones, and there are different ways to handle this. The way I do it, because I do want to get people to my YouTube channel, so that way there's just a greater depth of seeing me outside of LinkedIn and building nurturing that relationship. I actually will have a link to my YouTube channel and or I'm not YouTube, I'm sorry, to that YouTube video that I'm trying to promote, and then obviously have teaser copy in the caption. So there are different ways to do it. I could also take a snippet of that video and then upload that natively and then say, if you want to watch the rest of it, click here.
Right.
But that's like a two-step process. Again, there are pros and cons to every method. And for me, I'm all about, how do I get the most out of LinkedIn in the least amount of time? And because I'm also a wife and a mother and I have my hobbies, and so that's why I do it the way I do it. And again, it works. It's fine. It's about figuring out what works for you, really. And that's ultimately what I work with my clients on. Is like, okay, here's who you are. Let's figure out how to make that translate into LinkedIn in a way that's going to work for you.
Yeah. Well, Brooke, this was super helpful. Thank you so
Yeah.
much for spending the time and really helping us to up level our LinkedIn profiles and get some engagement going, being able to move. We talked about how to be able to move people off of LinkedIn,
Mhm.
into our, our own world as business owners where we can, further engage with them and ultimately help them with the sale. I'm a huge fan of like workshops and webinars, so I love that you said that as well, as a strategy where you can actually have like a sales presentation as a part of that workshop or webinar that you're doing, which will ultimately help to close those clients. So let us know, Brooke, if people want to connect with you or find out more about your services, where should they go?
Awesome. So if they go on my website is well, it's my company's Delaware Shout Out. The website is deshoutout.com, like DE for Delaware, shout out. It's all one word. If you type in Delaware Shout Out on um I forgot what I've been talking about on YouTube. You'll find it there. You'll find it there. And also, if you type in my name, Brooke Miles, and because there are a few Brooke Mileses out there, Brooke Miles Delaware Shout Out on LinkedIn, you'll find me there too. But please feel free to connect with me. I love meeting people. And you know what? If we click and you're up for it, I'd love to do a Zoom call with you so I can connect with so I can find out ways that I can connect you with other people and opportunities too, because again, it's all about helping each other as well.
Yeah, I love that, Brooke.
Thank
Well,
you.
thank you so much. This has been so fun, and I'm sure people are going to get so much value out of today's presentation. So definitely reach out to Brooke if you have any follow-up questions on anything that we discussed today. And remember, being a breadwinner is all about taking action, right? So go out and take action on what you learned today and be the breadwinning businesswoman that you desire to be. All right, until next time, bye for now.